What if the greatest industrial victory of the 20th century wasn't on the battlefield, but in the boardroom? During World War II, American corporations didn't just support the war effort, they powered it. Ford built bombers, DuPont sold explosives, and Standard Oil fueled the fleets. Behind every military triumph was a supply chain of profit. This is the hidden alliance between capitalism and conflict. But not every deal was patriotic. Some corporations played both sides. Some made billions. Some changed the world forever. This is the untold story of how war became big business. When we talk about World War II, we often picture generals, battles, and maps. But behind every bullet fired and tank deployed was a corporation fulfilling a contract. The war wasn't just fought, it was supplied, assembled, and profited from by American industry. This story is not about heroes on the front lines, but titans in boardrooms. From the auto industry in Detroit to oil fields in Texas and chemical plants in Delaware, American companies were suddenly thrust into a global crisis, and they thrived on it. The U.S. government poured billions into contracts, fueling an industrial miracle. In return, corporations delivered planes, tanks, bombs, and more. What started as patriotic duty soon became massive profit. By war's end, entire industries had transformed forever. This video uncovers the real players behind the war machine: Ford, DuPont, Standard Oil, Boeing, General Motors, and others. How did they rise to power during the world's deadliest conflict? What deals were made? And what legacy did they leave behind? The answers reveal a different kind of battlefield, one made of factories, finance, and ambition. In the 1930s, the United States was still reeling from the Great Depression. Factories sat idle, unemployment soared, and confidence in capitalism had cratered. The New Deal brought some relief, but America remained economically fragile as war clouds gathered over Europe and Asia. President Franklin D. Roosevelt understood that industry would be the key to national survival. Long before Pearl Harbor, he initiated quiet efforts to prepare American factories for wartime demands. Military spending subtly increased, and contracts were drafted even during the nation's declared neutrality. The outbreak of war in Europe in 1939 created an opportunity. While the U.S. remained on the sidelines, its industries began producing arms and supplies for Britain and other allies through the Lend-Lease Act, revitalizing manufacturing and employment almost overnight. Automobile giants like Ford and GM retooled their plants. Assembly lines that once built sedans now rolled out tanks, jeeps, and bombers. The government pumped billions into infrastructure and procurement. The great arsenal of democracy was being forged, even before the first American soldier saw combat. With Pearl Harbor's attack in 1941, neutrality ended, and full mobilization began. Overnight, the government and private sector merged into a war-producing juggernaut. Companies were given unprecedented contracts with guaranteed profits and tax breaks in return for production efficiency. The War Production Board was formed to direct resources, materials, and labor toward military goals. Civilian manufacturing was slashed or stopped. By 1943, nearly 40% of the U.S. economy was under war production. This was no longer business as usual, it was business as war. Corporations weren't just contributors, they were essential partners. Boeing built thousands of bombers, DuPont ran explosives plants, and Standard Oil refined the fuel that kept fleets in motion. Corporate CEOs became wartime executives, with power second only to military leaders. At the same time, new labor dynamics emerged. Millions of men left for war, and women flooded into factories in record numbers. Minorities found job openings once denied to them. The wartime economy reshaped American labor and society forever. By war's end, U.S. industry had become the largest military supply chain in history. The transformation was staggering, a peacetime economy turned global war machine. And in the process, corporations learned how to turn destruction into sustained economic dominance. World War II created a profit-driven battlefield far from the front lines. America's largest corporations didn't just aid the war effort, they transformed it. With government support, they scaled production to levels never seen before. But profit, not patriotism, often steered their decisions. Ford Motor Company famously built the B-24 Liberator at the Willow Run plant, one plane every 63 minutes. Henry Ford's anti-war stance softened when faced with lucrative military contracts. His factories became a symbol of industrial war power and massive government-backed profits. General Motors became the largest military contractor of the war, producing trucks, aircraft parts, tanks, and even firearms. Their wartime shift wasn't entirely seamless. Labor strikes and price controversies plagued production, but their earnings and influence skyrocketed regardless. DuPont, the chemical giant, manufactured over 4 billion pounds of explosives during the war. The company's deep ties to military research and development made it essential, yet controversial. Critics accused DuPont of monopolizing wartime chemicals and reaping excessive profits while preaching patriotism. Boeing led the skies, building more than 12,000 B-17 Flying Fortress bombers. Their facilities worked around the clock. Entire cities like Seattle were transformed by their output. War allowed Boeing to grow from regional contractor to global aviation powerhouse by the war's end. Standard Oil supplied the lifeblood of the war, fuel. Their reach extended from American oil fields to overseas facilities. However, the company faced serious scrutiny over pre-war business dealings with Nazi Germany, leading to allegations of double-dealing and divided loyalties. IBM provided early computing machines to both the Allies and, controversially, the Nazis. The company's punch-card systems helped process census and logistics data. Questions about corporate morality during wartime still linger, especially regarding who benefited from their technology. Coca-Cola expanded globally by embedding bottling plants wherever U.S. troops went. Under the guise of morale boosting, it gained exclusive shipping privileges, laying the groundwork for its post-war international empire. The soft drink became a global brand, on the back of military supply chains. These corporations didn't just support the war, they shaped it. Their influence extended beyond materials to manpower, strategy, and even policy. World War II became a corporate war, one that redefined the relationship between government, military, and business. And the consequences are still felt today. The Second World War didn't just change borders, it rewired the American economy. Corporate war production created an unbreakable alliance between industry and government. The blueprint for modern capitalism was written in blood and steel. That legacy didn't end in 1945, it expanded, evolved, and embedded itself worldwide. Post-war, many corporations kept their military contracts. The Cold War ensured continued spending. Companies like Lockheed, Northrop, and Raytheon inherited the model pioneered by World War II giants. The term military-industrial complex, coined by President Eisenhower, warned of unchecked power, but the engine had already been built. War had shown that conflict could be profitable, predictably so. Defense contractors lobbied Washington, crafted policies, and secured long-term contracts. The line between national security and corporate interest blurred. Weapons production became a permanent economy. Peace, paradoxically, became a threat to profit margins. Meanwhile, World War II-era corporations expanded into global markets. Coca-Cola, Ford, and IBM used their wartime foothold to dominate post-war economies abroad. The infrastructure of war became a springboard for peacetime monopolies. American brands became synonymous with victory and power. Socially, the war also had a long-term impact. Women and minorities who entered the workforce didn't all return to the sidelines. The wartime economy sowed seeds of civil rights, labor rights, and gender equality movements, driven by those who once built the arsenal of democracy. But ethical questions endured. IBM's role in Nazi data processing, Standard Oil's dealings with fascist regimes, and DuPont's price gouging are still debated. Can corporations truly serve public good when profit comes first? Can patriotism coexist with global commerce? These questions grew sharper in later wars. Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan each saw major corporate involvement, from weapons and construction to private military contractors. The World War II playbook was reused, but with fewer questions and bigger profits. Today, defense is one of America's most powerful industries. Military budgets continue to rise. Technology companies, once far from battlefields, now build drones, surveillance systems, and cyber weapons. The war business never ended, it just modernized. The story of WWII's corporate mobilization isn't just history, it's a template. Understanding it means seeing the invisible machinery that shapes policy, profits, and power. The war may be over, but the business it built is still very much alive. From aircraft giants to chemical empires, America's corporate machine turned World War II into the most profitable war in history. These companies didn't just fuel victory, they cemented global dominance for decades. But in the race to win, some crossed ethical lines, trading values for volume, and alliances for access. The echoes of those choices still reverberate in today's military-industrial complex. So we ask, should war ever be good business? Let us know what you think. Subscribe for more buried truths of history, and help us uncover what textbooks left behind. See you in the next video.